asked like, hey, what can I expect from this session? Well, we're going to get into it. I mean, so I'm going to basically, Gib's background is perfectly suited for this. Gib is the former VP of product at Netflix, has been a product leader, for quite some time. In 2010, he left Netflix and went on to Chegg, which is a textbook rental company that went public in 2014. And since that time, he's been doing a whole lot of teaching at Stanford, teaching in workshops that have been conducted at our conference, Industry, the Product Conference, and a whole host of other conferences and events. In fact, at our conferences, Gib's workshop and Gib's talk were both the highest rated that we've ever had. And so we've had Gib at our global edition of Industry in Cleveland, Ohio, which that's sort of our flagship conference that takes place every fall. We've had Gib at our European conference, actually just a couple of weeks ago. It was in Dublin, Ireland. Probably the last conference to be put on in all of Europe, with probably a handful of others. So I'm excited to have Gib with us. Now I can officially welcome you. Thanks for being here, Gib.
Good, Mike. Thank you for being my co-host today. All right. So I'll tell you a little bit about my early career. This is my first hit ever was Elmo's Preschool. And I built I was a co-founder of a company called Creative Wonders that made kids software. And we sold that company to the Learning Company for like, I don't know, 50 million bucks, okay? And the Learning Company, this dates me. That's the Reader Rabbit company and the Oregon Trail company. So you were kids when I was building software. That's how old I am. I'm older than dirt. But the Learning Company is more famous for, this was the CEO of the Learning Company. His name is Kevin O'Leary. He's Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank. And then worked with him and we helped grow that company and we sold it to Mattel for $4.2 billion. It sounds like a huge success, except we had failed to build long-term durable advantage. We had created a fad, and within 2 years, Mattel sold it back to a company called Gore, and it said, at a loss. Okay, I'm gonna tell you how big a loss it was. So this was a disaster. It was a $3.6 billion disaster. Mattel's sale of the Learning Company ends a $3.6 billion disaster, concluding one of the worst acquisitions of all time. Now, what does this have to do with product strategy? This was very impactful for me because it taught me about the importance of not only building things that delight customers and help build a business, but are also wonderfully hard to copy. And that was a fundamental learning from this affair for me. And I joined Netflix, as Mike said, in 2005. This is Reed Hastings. He's the CEO of Netflix. For those who don't know, Netflix began as a DVD by mail business. And then in 2007, in January, we launched 300 stinky movies in streaming. And that's when the streaming era began. And I'm assuming many or almost most of you are Netflix members. And then Mike got my background. You can see I was at Netflix from 2005, and then in 2010, went to my next startup. And then the last 5 years, this is what I do. It's great fun. All right, so today I'm gonna talk about product strategy, and there's really 3 chapters to this conversation. The first is I'm gonna share the frameworks that I use. The second, I'm gonna show how I would apply that. If I walked through the building today and I was back running the VP of product at Netflix, I'll share how I would communicate the product strategy. And then I have 2 modern day cases, juicy cases, that you're gonna have to help me with using the interaction in Slido. And I'll just tell you what they are. One of them is a special coronavirus case. So the question is, should Netflix execute this party function where all of us can pick a movie and we can watch together, despite the fact that we're thousands of miles apart? We can watch at the same time. This is the Netflix party feature. And we can chat, we can heckle, etc. Should Netflix launch this in an era where it's very relevant to help people get together? And my second question is, should Netflix enable custom playback speed? So some of you have done this with YouTube and many have done it with podcasts, but should you let a person go 20% faster if they have a 50-minute commute and the episode is 60 minutes? Or if it's a second language, would you let them slow it down by 20%? And this is the question of custom playback. So I want to read the room right now. So I call this provisional decision making. Without any other data or any other information, I just want to know what you guys think. So would you launch Netflix Party? That's the question, okay? And for those who are just joining us, I'm sorry that we keep saying this, but if you haven't done it yet, you can just hold up your phone and it will automatically take you to Slido. Mike, what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
Overwhelmingly, everybody's saying yes. That is 80% of the responses are yes. And I'm not surprised by that. I had marked yes too.
Yeah. So why is this not a surprise to you?
Well, I think especially right now, we can't leave our houses. We are not socializing with people, except in different ways that maybe we weren't socializing before, whether it's staying connected through various apps. We're all watching Netflix for sure. So, maybe there's this opportunity to combine the two.
Okay, can you remember the net numbers for me later? So my second question, I'm reading the room, just want to know, would you launch this feature that provides custom playback speed that lets you slow down or speed up? You guys are doing great. By the way, there's no right answer, but this is super helpful for me and sort of, I call it reading the room. In a webinar, it's much harder. In an audience, I can see your expressions, et cetera. Okay, Mike, what are you seeing?
It's split. So it's definitely not overwhelming one way or the other. I mean, there's a slight preference to no, but the room is definitely split on this one.
Got it. Okay, can you remember the numbers for me?
All right, I will remember.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is just a little preview of 2 cases that we're gonna do at the end, okay? So awesome sauce. Okay, so I said I had 3 chapters. The first chapter, I'm gonna talk about these frameworks, tools, models, and frameworks that I have found incredibly helpful for product leaders. So I just wanna give a little definition of what I mean by strategy. Hamilton Helmer, he's a professor of economics, but he wrote a book called The 7 Powers, these 7 hard to copy things. And his definition is strategy is a route to continuing power in a significant market. I don't know if anyone recognizes this, but this is the Silk Road, this photo here. So imagine it's thousands of years ago or hundreds, many, many centuries. And you are trying to figure out how to get tea and gems and silk from Southeast Asia and India all the way to London. And now you're an explorer and you're trying to figure out a path. Should it be by water? Should it be a land? And through lots of discovery, the route is the Silk Road. And there was amazing commerce. It was a very significant market. And it turns out it is durable. A lot of this is hard to copy, and a lot of it was protected actually by the things like the Great Wall of China. So this is my definition of strategy, and I'll come back to the work that we do. All right, so why do I focus on strategy? There's been a ton of focus on the how we build stuff, agile processes, et cetera. And I focus on strategy to get more of the question of what should we build and why, as opposed to the how. The second is it's your job as a product leader to communicate an inspired vision of the future. That's what I need and want all of you to do as product leaders. And then product strategy helps form these hypotheses to answer the question, how will I delight customers in these hard to copy margin enhancing ways, where margin enhancing is just a fancy way of saying, make the business work. Create profits so you can generate more money to make the product even better and better. And it enables saying no a lot and nicely. So if a product leader comes to me and says, hey, Gib, I think we should do this, my first question is, help me understand how this is on strategy. And oftentimes they'll say, never mind, they realize it's not on strategy. Or sometimes they'll say, gosh, that feels different. Are you saying that we should be engaged in a strategy that looks like this? But most of the time, I have to say no to about 80 or 90% of the things. And usually I'll just look at someone and say, is that on strategy? And they'll say, never mind. So it's a nice way of saying no. It facilitates prioritization. As product leaders, we can build anything, but we can't build everything. So we have to be really good at saying, okay, here are the 100 projects, but here are the 10 that we're going to do. And strategy facilitates that. And it's also a great way to communicate a plan. So I'm going to share with you how I do these things in a moment. So I'm going to overwhelm you now with alphabet soup, okay? So these are 5 of the frameworks that I use. I'll tell you a little bit about them, and then I'll dive a little deeper into just one of them. So the GLE model, it stands for get big in something for the first 5 years of a company's life, and then the next 5 or 10, the thing you're going to lead next, and then how you expand further. I've already shared with you the DHM model. I'll come back to that. GEM model is about how do you prioritize 3 forces: growth, how fast you grow; engagement, and that's how good is our product; and monetization, is the business working out? How do you prioritize those 3 forces? And then SMT stands for strategy, metrics, and tactics. For each strategy, I require you have a metric that defines whether that strategy is working or not. And tactics are simply the projects, all the stuff that we're working on. And then one of the most effective ways I've found to communicate a plan is a roadmap, a rolling 4-quarter roadmap. And I'm going to share examples of all these things. So just to in the intro, this is the purpose of each of these models. GLE is about helping form a long-term product vision. DHM forms these hypotheses to compete long-term. GEM is all about enabling cross-functional alignment between marketing, technology, the product team. SMT is all about developing these hypotheses and the metrics that help you discover whether they're working or not. And then the roadmap shares how things fit together. And I will show examples in a modern day articulation of Netflix strategy in a few minutes. So this is really for the PDF, okay? So at the end, you can go find the PDF, print it, but this is the summary of those last slides. So I want to just dive into just one of the models, this DHM framework, and it comes from my belief in what the product leader's job. The product leader's job is to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And you can tell the impact that hard to copy had for me on that disastrous learning company and Mattel experience. So this is the model. How do you delight customers? How do you do it in ways that are hard to copy? And how do you do things that help build a business that generate profit so you can invest even more in building a better product? So think for a moment about all the things that delight you about Netflix, okay? And I'm imagining that these are most of the things for folks. Okay, this is what is delightful. You can watch anytime and anywhere. You can stream instantly at the press of a button. Folks are digging, like Ozark season 3 is out right now, original content. So that's the way to think about delight. It's straightforward. And then margin enhancing, how do you build the business? The key insight for Netflix is it's an all-you-can-eat subscription. Okay, it doesn't have everything you want, but it delivers it at a great value. Most of you are paying about $15 a month. And Netflix has been experimenting like crazy with what they give you in a plan. Today, you get 4 simultaneous streams, which means it's okay to share with friends or family, okay? That's a different plan, multiple prices. Now, I just want to give you one insight that will surprise you a little bit about how Netflix is building a business today. And I call it right-sizing original content investment. So Netflix would love to tell all the stories. You know, I'm into Everest documentaries. It wants to do an Everest documentary. And what they're doing, because they have 175 million folks in the service, they know the member tastes of all of those people. And based on that, they can make guesses, forecasts about how many people will watch a certain show. And they are simply right-sizing their investment. So for instance, the prediction was 100 million people would watch Stranger Things. And that's correct. And because of that, they said they were willing to spend up to $500 million on that series. And then you take something else. Now I will reveal my quirky movie tastes. BoJack Horseman. Okay, I saw Mike smile. BoJack Horseman, 20 million was the prediction of how many people would watch it. And I'm sure there's some fans out there. And in that case, they elected to spend but 100 million. And this is the concept of right sizing. And it's a huge competitive advantage in one of the most substantial ways that Netflix is creating profit today, by just getting this balancing act right. So what I want you thinking about is what makes Netflix hard to copy. And I just want to share, how I communicate this to the product leaders that have worked for me. So this is what Netflix looked like. It was a DVD by mail service in 2005. And a bright product manager, his name HB, he came to me, he was so excited. In an A/B test, this beat that previous screen. More people clicked on the red Start Now button and joined the service. And it was all about the emotional content of a happy family on a couch. So he was delighting more members and he was building a better business. And I said, that's awesome. We should do stuff like this. But I also need and want you to focus on the things that are hard to copy, because it's my guess that next month, those bastards from Blockbuster are going to copy this work, which is exactly what they did. So here's Blockbuster's homepage with the happy family on the couch. And this is why it's so important to do hard to copy things, because if you do it well, you find yourself in this rare space where you don't have to really think or worry about the competition. You're just maniacally focused, I call it obsessed, on delighting your customers. And this is the real value of doing things that are hard to copy. So the question I put out to you right now is, what's hard to copy about Netflix? Okay? And I need to know. And if you joined us recently, you can always just pull up the phone. It'll automatically take you to the right page. But I'm searching for all the things. I can tell there's a few ringers out there, Mike. Is that you?
I haven't entered my answer yet, so I was going to think
put them in there.
one.
And I let you put in multiple answers, okay? So go crazy. I want to see it. And I'm really searching, for 4 themes. I mentioned that Hamilton Helmer says there are 7 things. I actually think there's 8. But for most of the work that we do, there tend to be about 4 buckets of ideas. And I'm searching to see them. And I can sort of parse through all the fonts, the issues. Good. Okay, we got 100.
Definitely seeing some come to the surface here, right?
I got the content message, original content. I love that a bunch of product leaders have highlighted the brand. And yes, I'm a big believer in personalization. That's awesome. Recommendations is the same. There's some other unique technology, exclusive content, original content, scale, user base, user experience. Yeah, we can debate a bunch of these. Talent. Okay, awesome. It's easy to use. I wonder, is easy to use hard to copy? I don't know. It's a really interesting question. Sometimes people put culture. Is culture hard to copy? This is more about what's hard to copy about the product. Okay, so I'll reveal how I think about this. Any big surprises there, Mike?
Not really. I mean, when I think of original programming and the personalization of it, I know I added programming. Yeah, I mean, those are the ones that came to mind for me.
It's not going to end with the disaster that happened with the learning company. So for me, the 4 buckets, it's all about the brand. At Netflix, the job was to create a product where movie enjoyment was made easy. That was the brand promise. We never said that to customers, but we were focused on building a product that embodied that idea to build a trusted brand. And you guys all trust it today with your credit card. So the device ecosystem, every device in the world, anything with a screen is magically pre-wired to enable Netflix. I call that a substantial network effect. And then there's lots of unique technology. One of the most substantial things is personalization, because it can delight customers, helping you find a great movie in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways, as I shared with you with the example of Stranger Things and BoJack. And then, yes, I saw original content like crazy. The technical way to think about this is Netflix has a huge hard to copy advantage in economies of scale. So the way that I think about this is today you have 175 million members. Because of that, Netflix can afford to spend about $20 billion a year on content, okay? Whereas poor Amazon, I love saying poor Amazon, can only afford to spend about $5 billion. And Hulu can only afford $3 billion. And Apple is somewhere between 1 and 2 billion. So Netflix has this huge economy scale, and that's what's delivering the original content that you love. So this is how to think, or how I've learned to think about hard to copy. All right, so I've given you a brief introduction to the frameworks. I dove deep into the DHM model. And now I'm gonna switch voices, okay? I'm gonna switch characters. I am now Gibson Biddle, and I've just joined Netflix 2 weeks ago. And it's my job to stand up in front of the whole company and articulate in just a few minutes the product strategy, okay? So I don't work there now. I have no inside knowledge, but this is how I might do it. Hi, everybody. I'm Gibson Biddle. I'm glad to be here today. I'm wicked excited about the opportunities here in the future. Yes, it's 2020. It's April something. And I just want to recognize that this is the product that we're working to build. This is the positioning of Netflix. It's a movie subscription service that delivers fast, easy entertainment in a friendly, straightforward way. And everything we build is trying to embody this idea. And the way that I remember this, and the way that my marketing partners want to tattoo it on my arm, is this one idea of movie enjoyment made easy. And all of our decisions about what to do or not to do are trying to be consistent with these ideas. So I want to give you a little sense of the product vision, how we can take it from here, and it might expand 5 or 10 or 15 years into the future. And so that we all started by getting big on DVD. This is basically the first 8 years of our lives. And then in January 2007, we began the chapter where we were going to lead streaming. And over time, our DVD by mail system became less important. And the one thing about DVD by mail is you can't expand international, but once you're digital, we could. So we expanded worldwide. And then the fourth chapter, which we're in now, and you can see it, is we now are creating original content. We're taking stories from all around the world and delivering them to people all around the world. We're not making the mistake of just having Hollywood content that goes to the rest of the world. It's worldwide stories for all of the world. And then I want to give you a hint of some of the experiments that we're engaged in that might be important 5 or 10 years from now. And that has to do with interactive stories. Technology has been changing storytelling, and we have some early bets. Some of you might have seen Bandersnatch from Black Mirror. That is an early experiment in these concepts of how might storytelling evolve over the next 5, 10, or 15 years. That's an early bet. And I'm guessing those of you who have used it, it's pretty good, but not great. And that's how these efforts begin. Our first original content was called Lilyhammer. It was translated into English, okay? This is how things start. So that's the vision. I want to focus, we're a very data and metrics driven team. And at the end of the day, there's one high level metric that we're maniacally focused on. It's our high level engagement metric, and it's really monthly retention. So to remind you, when Netflix started, 10% of its customers were canceling every month. And back in 2005, 5% would cancel every month. That's better. And then today, about 2% cancel. So we've improved retention substantially, but we're going to keep getting better. And that's how we define whether we're doing a great job with product. All right. So spent some time with the executive team, et cetera, trying to get our handle on how do we prioritize these 3 forces: growth, monetization, and engagement. And the assessment, over the next 6 months or so, and we could always reevaluate, but we think it's important to keep growing, that we want year-over-year membership growth of something like 20%, because that will help build our advantage with economy of scale. And we're also focused the second priority on monetization. Back in 2005, lifetime value was $100. Today, it's 170%. Gross margin is just a measurement of profitability. And then I've already talked about retention. We've just put that in third place because frankly, I'm not sure how low we could make it go. The 2 reasons that people are canceling today is there's no money in their account and they don't have time to watch stuff, okay? But, my guess is over the next 5 years, maybe we get to 1% cancel. Don't know. It's not to say we're not trying, but this is how we prioritize these 3 forces in the GEM model. And then we're engaged in maybe 6 or 7 high-level strategies. I'm just going to share with you 4 of them. And I want to share how I'm used to locking up a strategy with a metric and a tactic or a project. So I want you to look for a second. We've talked a little bit about personalization and original content. We've talked a little bit about interactive storytelling, but I want to talk about the watching experience, okay? That just means we need to just keep getting better at how things look and how they sound and the experience that we create. And our proxy metric for this, because retention's so hard to move, we have a lower level metric. And it's the percentage of customers who watch at least 30 hours a month. And I think that metric is probably about 50% of customers are watching at least 30 hours a month. And if we could drive that from 50 up to 60, the idea is that will likely lead to retention improvements. And some of the projects, the tactics, Ultra HD, incredible, beyond 4K sound, custom playback speed, shared viewing, a magical lip sync algorithm within hours takes a story from France and translates it into 40 languages with lip syncing that you can't even tell, because people want to hear these stories in their own language. So this is an example of how we take a strategy, a better watching experience, with a metric, that proxy metric, the percentage of customers who watch at least 30 hours a month, and then a variety of projects or tactics. And then I just want to give you a sense of how this will play out over time. This is a 4-quarter rolling roadmap starting with Q2. We're just beginning that now. And I'm confident about the projects in Q2, kind of, sort of, but recognize the projects in Q3, Q4, and Q1, they might change. We will learn so much in this next quarter that those things might likely change. But I want to give you a sense of how this might play out over time. And I'm wicked excited about the opportunities we have in front of us. And with, I already did this. Sorry, I'll do it again. Watching experience. We're going to do shared viewing in Q2, I think, maybe. Custom playback speed, we're going to do in Q3, I think, maybe, and then we'll get on to the lip sync. So you have a sense of how that watching experience will evolve over time. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm going to switch out of character. I just tried to give you a simulation about how I would work to give an inspired communication of the future using the tools and frameworks and models that I shared with you today. Okay. Remember, I don't work at Netflix. I haven't been there since 2010. Okay. Some of that is probably on target. Some of it's not. Okay. So don't buy or sell stock based on something I just did there. Okay. So the cool thing, I want to share how strategy sort of intersects with our jobs on a daily, weekly, monthly process. So I want to come back to those 2 cases that we did and kind of play it out, figure out the right thing to do now that we have some context for how to think about this stuff. You ready, Mike? What were the numbers for Netflix Party? Remember? Were they go or no go?
Yeah, 80% said a go.
Okay, good. We got a lot of youthful optimists. It's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Netflix Party. So this is out there. There's a little team, and you can install it today. It's a Chrome extension, and what I noticed is last month they had 500,000 people using it. Now, a month later, they have 1 million people. That's a little sign, okay? And if you look carefully, yeah, you can watch the movie, but then you can see the chat and all the heckling and everything else going on. So it's a shared experience. This is what Netflix Party is. And in Netflix, they have lots of resources, and executing an idea, given their technology and their capabilities, is straightforward. So let's call this a proof of concept. Okay, and let's think about whether Netflix should execute this on their own. And it wouldn't require a Chrome extension. That, by the way, that's a wicked hard thing for a normal human being to download and install. And just a little bit about it, you know, these are my screen captures on my phone. So the Twitter is like going crazy about this stuff. For the win, the hottest new thing in quarantine life is hosting a Netflix party. And if you go to Twitter, if you haven't tried Netflix Party to watch movies with friends, you're an idiot, right? Or here's the, let's see, Xbox had this over, this is true, had this over a decade ago with Netflix Party mode on Xbox. And it even included a little avatar sitting in movie theater seats. Bring it back. You know, the world wants this, okay? And just so you have a sense of it, I mean, this is how it works with the little plugin, but I just want you to think about the product experience. So they require an installation. Netflix wouldn't need this. And then you need to choose a video. And then you need to let your friends know that you're having a party. And then you have to enable them to join the party, okay? So 4 steps for making this happen. And I just want to give you a little consumer insight, okay? There is a lot of experimentation that's happened at Netflix with a social strategy, okay? So, and it's a little bit, you know, it'll break your heart. We launched something called Friends. You could connect with your friends, you could share movie ideas with your friends, and we killed it in 2009 because only 5 or 6% of our membership base was actually using it. And this is weird because, you know, Facebook was growing like a weed. Social was making everything better. And then as you picked up, Xbox wanted to do party mode. They did party mode, and then it was killed in 2010. The same reason. Not enough folks were using it. And then Netflix experimented with Tell a Friend, and which is, even if you weren't a member, you could share a movie idea with anyone. So if they weren't on Netflix, it would do the magic of finding the members, but you would send a movie idea and it would magically send it via text or email or WhatsApp or whatever else. It was magic. And they stopped doing that in 2018. Same reason, there wasn't as much usage as hoped or wanted. You know, probably less than 5%. Okay, so here's the insight. There's really two things I want you to learn from this, okay? Your friends have sucky movie tastes, okay? So their ideas, you often think, why the hell would I want to watch that? And there's one other thing, okay? You have many guilty pleasures. So you don't really want people to know what you're watching, okay? And you don't have to confess to me what they are, but I have them myself, okay? So that's the insight. So this is a little bit of background and history, but really consumer insight to help you think about social in the context of movies. All right, so here's the thing today. Incredible data. We've watched Netflix Party grow from 500,000 users to 1 million in the last 30 days, okay? Amazing. And we could launch Party. You're the product leader for this. You could launch it for anybody using a laptop at Netflix next month. And then by the end of the year, for all mobile and TV devices, you can make this happen, okay? Now, you have bright engineers at Netflix. They have amazing APIs, and so enabling this, making it happen, it can be done, right? And probably it's gonna be hard to copy. Like if you look at the execution with the Chrome extension, it's kind of a little bit wonky, but Netflix can do it well. It would probably be years before Amazon Prime or Hulu or Apple could do this, okay? So that's the big question. Will this delight Netflix members in hard to copy? My guess is yes. Margin enhancing ways. So here's the thing. The way you improve margin is this the kind of feature that could improve retention? Today, 2% cancel every month. If you could lower that to 1.9%, that would be an amazing lift to the business, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So that's the way to think about it. So the question is, and by the way, you can tell Netflix keeps experimenting with social because so many companies are doing it successfully. And is this the right time to do it? That's the question. So should we launch this or should we not launch it? And that's the question. And I just want to see if anybody's thinking has changed from the early days based on anything that I've said. You seen anything, Mike?
Yeah, so it started out kind of half and half, but now we're starting to see the yeses come through. It's not as high as it was though in the very beginning. You know, we're at
Why do you think
60,
that is?
40.
Why do you think that is?
I think there's well, you kind of brought up the question. It's like, can this be something that's actually margin enhancing? Like in the very beginning, when you ask the question, it's more about like, is this a cool, I mean, people might be thinking, is this a cool idea? But now we're trying to think of it in the lens of those metrics that you've been talking about. Correct. I actually still think it could be margin enhancing,
yeah.
You know, but or it may not be, but I'm just thinking about if people get into habits.
Well, so here's the cool thing.
Group of friends, you know.
The cool thing is Netflix could test this. I think it's worth testing. But I'm going to make a guess at what the result will be, okay? And I think I have dampened enthusiasm by giving the tattered history of social at Netflix, okay? It clearly hasn't worked yet, and the question is, might it work tomorrow? Okay, and then I want to know, like, I can see the shift, but I want to know if you were a yes person, why did you say yes? And if you were a no person, why did you say no? If you can just give a word or two, I want to know about your thinking. It's good. That's good. You're doing great. Keep doing that. Okay. So the climate. Okay, there's a huge change, right? And you're a believer in social. Failed in the past. Maybe it's not going to work now. The cost, not that substantial. Will it improve retention? That's the big question. You see any other trends here, Mike? Are you learning? I'm trying to get inside the collective brains of everybody on the webinar today.
seeing delight, or at least at one point that was kind of a large word there.
I see the word fad. That's a
Fad,
really
yeah.
good articulation. Okay, you guys are
Which
doing
it is true. I
awesome.
mean, we're all sort of in this quarantine environment. Like, we're up for trying new things. So maybe
We
the fad
are.
thing,
And is it going to
we
last?
have to.
Right?
Right. But
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like,
I mean,
once we
think
try
back
it, will it last?
my experience with the kid software. I precipitated over a fad. Like you couldn't get your kid on a computer early enough, right? And
Yep.
then, 2 years later, the world understood, oh, maybe it's really not important. Okay. Okay. That was super helpful to me because I'm trying to get in the heads of folks. Okay. So, these are modern day cases. I don't know the answer. Okay. But I'm going to tell you what I think and what I would do. And by the way, Netflix would test something this before it launched it out to all. And my guess is it would fail in test, but I'm going to give you some sense. So I would choose not to launch this, and I want to give you some reasons why. So the things I want you thinking about are, we are not normal people, okay? So we all reacted very positively to this idea at the beginning. And we are not normal people. We are on a webinar using Zoom and Slido and Google Slides from all over the world. We are freaks. And so just be careful when you make decisions about product, making sure that you're talking to normal people, okay? So I had a sort of a rule, we would never do focus groups in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. We would go to Providence, Rhode Island, to places where people were not freaks, okay? That's my first thing I want you thinking about. And then if you're trying to create a simple, easy thing, you have to say no to a lot of stuff. And if you actually execute the things that only 5% of your members enjoy, you start having this crazy product that's not simple. I mean, frankly, Zoom is a little like that for me. There's so many choices. It's not a simple and easy experience. And creating a simple thing means saying no to a lot. It means killing things. All of those things that were killed were because there was an ongoing tax for the service, and it just created one more button, okay? The next is, I think there's no real delight. Yeah, so maybe 5% of us, the freaks, would like this, but if you can't get engagement, if you can't get delight, then there's no hard to copy and there's no margin, okay? And then the last idea here is just to remember, you're trying to build Netflix. It's all about movie enjoyment made easy. And I think this is at the edge. It's one of those complex things that's really not that easy. Think about how hard it is to pick a movie. And now thinking about getting your friends to want to watch the same movie at the same time. And the choice is you could watch it on your own, okay? I think most people will fall back to, I'm going to watch a movie on my own. Today, I mean, it's still not easy to find a movie you love. All right, so I got the second case for you. So, and by the way, don't let me get inside your head. I want to know what you think, okay? Okay, so custom playback. Got kind of a Stranger Things going on here. It just means that, imagine a use case on a mobile device where you can speed it up a little bit, slow it down a little bit. That's what we're talking about here. And I want to give you a little bit of consumer insight. So this is a very frequent customer request. Okay, lots of folks are saying, hey, can you let us speed stuff up, because my commute's a little short, or you can let it slow me down. And it's really coming from, most of us have done this on YouTube, and almost all of us have done this in podcasts. And by the way, this is magic technology from Netflix. And I will tell you, this is out in test right now. That's how I know about it, okay? So that's the first. Like, Mike, what was the data? How many people leaned forward and wanted to do it?
45%. So 55% said don't do it.
Got it. Okay. So my guess is I could talk most people into a test. Okay. Let's test it. So, and the thinking is, okay, let's test it on mobile devices with original content that we own in New Zealand and see what happens. Okay. Does that sound like a reasonable idea to you, Mike?
I don't know. I don't know
about
New Zealand.
I don't know. You're a fence sitter, damn you. Okay. Well, here's the real question. What will the studios think about this? Like, so if you're the product manager for this and you're passionate about this idea and you think, maybe 20% of the members will use it, but then you're thinking, oh crap, what if the studios see this? What will they think about this? Okay. Will they notice the mobile-only test in New Zealand with original content? And the answer is yes, they noticed. Okay? And I'll tell you exactly what they thought. This is Brad Bird. He is the director for The Incredibles, Pixar, Disney dude. Well, another spectacularly bad idea, another cut to the already bleeding out cinema experience. Why support and finance filmmakers' visions on one hand and then work to destroy the presentation of those films on the other? They're saying, we know exactly the right speed for a movie. Why would you let someone speed it up or slow it down? I love the response down below. Gay on Maine, her response was, okay, boomer. I just love that. Letting Brad Bird know what she thought. Oh, here's another juicy one. Netflix, don't make me call every director and show creator on earth to fight you. I will win. This is Judd Apatow. He did Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin, etc. Here's another juicy one. This is Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. There is no way Netflix will move forward. That would mean they are talking about taking control of art and destroying it. This is what the studios and creators think. Okay, so now we know the studio response. So now think about the metrics to evaluate success. What would your proxy metric be? And I'm going to posit one, okay? And I'm going to give you my expected result in an A/B test. No inside knowledge, okay? But the way I look at this is if it's useful to enough members, then it will be delightful and you have a shot at retaining more customers. So my metric would be the percentage of members who use this feature at least twice a month. That would be my measurement for usefulness. So now imagine you're staring at the A/B test, and in this test, it was probably a little bit rough, and 20% of your members are using this feature. They are slowing down and speeding up stuff, okay? You have that result, like, that's interesting. How do I feel about it? Now we have this trade-off. Oh my God, the studios who are core to what we do, we need all their content, their original content. We want them to love us, love us more than HBO, versus the customers. And 20% saying, hey, this is a cool thing. We should do this, okay? And then are you delighting customers in hard to copy margin enhancing ways? So my argument is if you got 20% engagement, then that's good enough delight. Like you have a shot at actually improving retention, and that's the margin enhancement. And this is hard to copy. So just think about the magic of speeding up conversations without making the lip sync funny or going to a squeaky voice, okay? And there's a lot of the explosion scenes are just a little shorter, et cetera. But this is magical technology that I think is wicked hard to copy. This would take Amazon Prime or Hulu or Disney like 3 or 4 years to get to. All right, so I've given you more context. And if we get this result, 20% are using at least twice a month, would you go with it a yes, or would you go with it on a no? What are you seeing, Mike? What are you seeing?
The answer is still more no than not, but now it's even more so. So we got about 2/3 saying no.
What do you think people are thinking about?
Well, I'm wondering if they're thinking about is that 20%, like, is that meaningful enough? Is it actually producing, like, I mean, yes, it's hard to copy. Is it going to increase margin though? Maybe that's one of the considerations they're making.
Imagine you built a new feature and 20% of your members were using it. How would you feel?
It wouldn't feel like a lot. I mean,
it doesn't feel like a lot to you?
No. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I could see the data. By the way, you can know, like, this is going to launch or not. It's in test. Okay. So looks like I managed to talk more people out of it, right? And this is what I said, don't let me get inside your head, okay? So I'm just trying to give you the data. Okay, so we have 60% are no and 40% yes. So I'll just tell you how I think about this. I would launch it. So I think 20% is substantial and you have a shot at improving retention. But here's what I want you to learn. This is a balancing act. This is what I call customer obsession. If you are maniacally focused on how do I delight my customers? How do I delight? If you find something that 20% are into, that is an amazing start. Just so you know, Watch Instantly only started with 5%. 5% were watching at least 15 minutes in a month. Everything cool, Mike?
Sorry. Yes. I
Okay,
got
good,
muted
good,
off
good.
for a little
Okay,
bit.
and this is what I call customer obsession. If being maniacally focused on delighting your customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. Okay. My second issue is, I've just said it. I think this will delight, and I think it's hard to copy, and I think it helps to build the business. And then here's an interesting thing. So in making this decision, the people in the room at Netflix are going to be product people. There's another team, and they're called a content team. And this is the notion at Netflix between tightly aligned and loosely coupled. So the product people make this decision. They're maniacally focused on figuring out the best product. The content team is maniacally focused on figuring out what's the right content. And they are only loosely coupled. So the product team doesn't ask the content team what they think. Okay? This is a product decision. It's not by committee. And at the end of the day, what I think is going on is this is another example of creative destruction, which is, guess what? Storytelling has evolved over thousands of years and big changes with technology. You went to black and white movies, and then the storytelling community was freaking out because they added sound, and then they added color. And people were freaking out when they went from hand-drawn animation to 3D stuff from Pixar. And they're going to freak out, with 3D interactive storytelling, et cetera. And so Netflix's perspective is, if we obsess over the customers and always to delight them, that's what we need to focus on. And so they're not going to care as much about the studios, and recognize the studios, Netflix is spending $20 billion a year, okay? So this is just an interesting case for me about leaning into the customer as opposed to the storytellers. And that's what customer obsession is all about. All right, so I'm going to bring it home for you, okay? So we've been talking about strategy. And remember, I talked about this journey. It's a route to continuing power in a significant market. So we are all explorers, okay? We're trying to find the route, the path from, punk startup to worldwide success, or good company to great company, or whatever it is. And for me, these strategies are really hypotheses on how you hope to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. They are hypotheses. Like, truly, at Netflix this year, they're probably engaged in 6 or 7 high-level strategies. And if they get it right 4 or 5 times, that would be a big win, okay? These are hypotheses. You don't know the answer. And frameworks, these tools that I've shared with you, they enable you to combine discipline and chaos, okay? So invention is messy and dirty. Innovation is messy and dirty. It's full of chaos. And strategy is just trying to bring a little bit of discipline to it. And these are the two forces that I'm always trying to mix together. And then at the end of the day, you're doing this to communicate an inspired vision of the future. And for product leaders, that's the most important job. And I realize many of you are early in your careers, et cetera, but I want you to grow and practice leadership at every stage. Because in the long term, this is incredibly powerful. The ability to communicate an inspired vision of the future. That's your job. Because at the end of the day, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And this is a quote from Le Petit Ponts. That's my bad French. Anyways, it just gives you a sense of how important and how inspiring good strategy can be. So with that, I'll say thank you. For those of you who know me, I'm not quite done. There's one more thing, I promise you. And that one more thing is, wait a minute, is I sometimes feel like I'm a freaking street performer. You got the crowds there. You've seen this scene. They're doing their thing, and then they do this amazingly stupid thing, which is they pass the hat. And, in this case, they're asking for money, and the whole crowd runs away. You've done that. In this case, I'm passing the hat, but I'm asking for feedback. So what I would love for you to do, this is different from Slido, is hold up your phone as though you're taking a photo, and a link will magically pop up. It's from SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey, 0 socks and 10 is great. It's asking you the question, how likely would you be to recommend this webinar? This will be my 354th survey result. And then there's 2 other questions. What's one thing that's good about this webinar, and one thing that could be better? And that's what I'm searching for And your feedback is amazingly helpful. You can tell that I've shifted from live stuff to completely webinar and completely online workshops. And we're all learning and experimenting together. Mike and I have probably done this 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks. So your feedback is just incredibly, incredibly, incredibly helpful. Now, if you have a device that it doesn't work, Mike, can you spit out some links and stuff in the background? You there?
Yes, for sure.
If you could send, I'm sure there's some folks that can't do it. If you could just send them the NPS link, send them the link to the PDF, send them the link to my website, all that stuff. But if you're on an Android device with Lollipop where this won't work, you can go to www.gibsonbiddle.com. I put the SurveyMonkey link there. I put the PDF of the presentation waiting for you. And then I wrote an article. It's called How to Define Your Product Strategy. And it's a 12-part essay. Every essay is about 3 minutes long, so it's not overwhelming. But it talks in much more depth about all of this stuff, okay? And then Mike and I do a bunch of stuff together. Just so you know, I left these links for upcoming workshops. So all of these are at 12:30 Eastern time. On 4/16, I'm doing a 5-hour workshop online on product strategy. We use Zoom rooms, et cetera. 4/28, a career hacking one, and another one on 5/14. And Mike provided a discount code, friend of Gib, and that gets you $50 off or something, Mike?
That's right. That's right.
Oh, cool. Cool. And then for those workshops, like it's fun if you bring teams in because they can work on their product strategy together. And that's why we favor doing group discounts for folks.
And these go a whole lot deeper too. It's like a few hours with you, small group settings, makes it even more interactive too.
Cool beans. So I'm going to answer questions via Slido, and this is the moment you remind me to stop sharing my screen, but I know that now because I've gotten so smart at this.
I had it on my list.
Okay, good,
I had
good,
it on
good,
my
good.
list.
So I'm, anyways, thank you everyone for being with me. I look forward to hearing questions from you, Mike. We got any good questions?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions here. And in fact, actually the top 2 questions are basically the same one, more of a career-oriented question. And
I got it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I can see it. Okay. The question is to MBA or not to MBA. Okay. And I did a webinar on hacking your career yesterday. I'm guessing some people came back, and I revealed that I did take 2 years off to go to business school. And then I made a statement that maybe you don't need to today. Okay. And the reason that things may have changed over a generation is I think there are so many more opportunities to learn essentially on the side. So it doesn't require you go back to business school for 2 years, okay? So if people ask me this question, there are some advantages to business school, okay? First, for 2 years, you're with your peers in a cool place and you're completely focused on learning. And I love that, okay? And you learn a lot and you have the time to focus on your education and learning. Whereas on the side, it's a little trickier. And then, you know, my experience was I had graduated from Dartmouth at Tuck and I could get an interview with everyone. So that was awesome. Okay. Lots of opportunities. If you want to be an entrepreneur, for instance, my suggestion is not do it because you're better at just trying stuff and hacking. That's, you know, the school of life for starting a startup from scratch is probably better than the more theoretical life from B school. These are personal choices. I can't give you the answer. You know, what I encourage you to do is build, this is a career hacking tactic, your personal board of director of peers who really know you and care about you, mentors who really know you and care about you. And you know, they can help you wrestle through. I can't, because I don't know you. Okay, I wish I did. So I'm trying to give advice in the abstract, and I don't want to screw up your life by telling you the wrong thing. Okay, what else you got, Mike?
Yeah, another popular one. It's how do you evaluate the trade-offs? You know, and you mentioned all sorts of metrics that we could be using. I imagine it plays a role into it, but how do you evaluate trade-offs when you're making product decisions at a strategic level?
Yeah, so the first thing is articulate the strategy. So, you know, what drives me crazy is many folks think they have a strategy and really all they have is a roadmap, a bunch of stuff they're going to do. And notice I started with the strategy and then I laid it out against a roadmap. So articulate these high-level hypotheses on how you're going to delight your customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. The next thing is have a metric, okay? And again, most folks don't have a metric. Recognize in Netflix, it was so hard to move retention. It's like, you know, moving an iceberg. So you need the proxy metrics. And frankly, that's the hardest part. evaluating and deciding what's the right proxy metric. So then trade-offs. Can you give me an example? Like what's more important, this or that? You know, I always come back to what is the strategy, what are the key hypotheses and the projects against those? You know, oftentimes somebody will come with a new idea and now I have to say, okay, is that on strategy? Does it fit against one of these strategies? Or are they actually advocating a new strategy? And sometimes that happens. Trade-offs. I mean, the world is full of trade-offs, right? You know, time versus money, time versus quality, quality versus time, right? In the abstract, I can't give you any good advice, except have a strategy, articulate your strategy, and let that be the foundation for these discussions and these debates. And then frickin' have the debate. You know, good fights make good marriages. And I'm coming up on 30 years, so it's working out for me.
I think it's a great answer, actually. It's like, let's link it back to the strategy itself, right?
Exactly.
And actually, the next question is sort of related to that. It's how can we best make sure that the product strategy we're putting in place is tied to the overall corporate strategy?
It's a good question. If you notice, my product vision is kind of in a gray area between product strategy and company strategy, and that is purposeful, okay? And so that is my way to ensure there's linkage between the overall company strategy and the product strategy. And then the other thing is, you know, one of the things you learn as a leader is just over communicate. That little presentation I did, I would do something like that in my first 2 to 4 weeks of work. I work quickly because I feel like the whole product strategy is a hypothesis. And now I'm asking for feedback. And that's how I really learn. I put a stake in the ground. I think this is right. What do you think? And then the folks that have been there for multiple years that are much smarter, they give me the feedback. But I'm not starting with an empty slate, with an empty conversation. And then once I think I got it right, like I just find myself repeating myself forever. Oh, okay, this year we're going to be maniacally focused on improving personalization, the movie watching experience, the tools and technology against original content. And we've got a big bet. We don't know, but it's this whole interactive storytelling. And we won't know for 2 or 3 or 4 years if that's a good idea. That's the way I have the conversations. Okay, what do you got? What do you got?
All right. And we're past 2 Eastern, but are you good with a couple more questions, Gib? Yeah. Great. Let's do it.
I'll hang out forever.
So you shared you shared a few frameworks that you use, and those feed into the metrics that you're constantly monitoring for products. One of the questions was, how do you know which sort of metric is the right one for your specific strategy?
That's freaking hard, right? So let me just give you an example. Hey, Mike, can you see?
What is that? I can sort of.
That's the NPS for the talk.
Ah, that's good. That's good. You liked it all. We love it.
Yeah. 70s world class. Thank you. Keep giving me ideas. Okay. So anyways, let's just do it. Your name is Brent Avery. You're the product manager launching Watch Instantly at Netflix that's streaming in 2007. What's your proxy metric? And I'll tell you what it was, and then I'll tell you how we got there. So his proxy metric was the percentage of members that watched at least 15 minutes of streaming in a month. That was the proxy metric. And recognize we launched with 300 stinky titles. And the idea was, why 15 minutes? And that was the shortest increment of value. So it turned out the shortest TV episode was 15 minutes. So that was an increment of value. And then the percentage of members, that was really trying to measure delight, okay? Now notice, we did not do average, okay? What's the average viewing? Average, I almost never find average helpful, because the problem with average is you could have 1,000 freaks that watch 40 hours in a month, but that's not really helpful, okay? Because you're trying to get normal people engaged in this, okay? So at launch, it was 5% watched at least 15 minutes a month. By the end of the first year, it was at 15%. And then we were experimenting with crazy. Of course, more content was better, but getting to more platforms was really important. And then we were just trying to make it simple and easy. In the old days, you actually had to downlight Silverlight, which is horrible. It's a digital right management thing. But my point was that Brent was maniacally pounding on that metric to be successful. This is sad, or this is just hard. One thing when I first started Netflix, I was surprised because we would debate the right proxy metric for a while. Because if you get it wrong, then you're doing the wrong things. So some of these debates went on for 3, 6, 9 months. I mean, personalization was one of the harder ones to get a proxy for. Anyways, that structure, percentage of members, shortest element of value. And the idea is if you actually move the proxy metric up and to the right, you have a shot at improving retention. You hope they're correlated, and in the long term, you actually hope that you can prove that it's causal, okay? Actually, I did an essay on this in that series, how to define your product strategy. It's pretty cogent. I talked from the outsider perspective on how we created a metric for simple. How do you measure if something is simple and easy? That's a hard question, but I wrote about it, and I think you'll like the essay. Okay, what else you got?
That's great. So for people that are in individual contributor product roles now, we might not be involved in sort of setting the product strategy. How can we get better at that? Like, how can we sort of train ourselves up if we are in that role?
Yeah. So I have this little phrase, leaders lead. So imagine, so the first thing, imagine you're the product leader for your swim lane. So Brent was the product leader for the watch instantly, the streaming swim lane, or Todd was the product leader for the personalization swim lane. So in that case, you're not the overall head of product. I mean, I want you to behave that way and think that way. Anyways, my point is all of these concepts I've talked about today, you can actually apply to your own little pod or your little swim lane. And that's excellent practice, okay? The next is ask the head of product, you know, hey, I'd like to understand the product strategy better. Because they need feedback. They want feedback, okay? So just say, hey, can you share with me the thinking? I'd just love to know. You can read. So my series, I think you'll find very helpful reading. Obviously, you can do workshops, which I love to do. What else can you do? I mean, the exercise in the workshop is we pretend that everybody's head of product. And so you can be the head of product in the workshop for Airbnb, right? What should the product strategy be? These are good ways to practice, to simulate what it's like to truly be a head of product, okay? Anyways, I guess short answer, you know, ask your boss, like, hey, how do I think about strategy in this context? Can we talk about it? I'd love to learn. Read the essays, good way to learn. There's always cheap, fast, easy ways to learn in this modern era.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you, Gib. By the way, and you kind of referenced, you know, in your workshops, you know, you go deep, people sort of simulate. Could you talk about that a little bit more? Because again, those workshops that you've done in the past, whether it's at industry or that we're doing with the industry virtual workshops, I mean, you're spending over a half day with you. So just maybe people would like to know a little bit more about it.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. So we did 5 frameworks. Okay. And so in the course of 5 hours, we'll go through all 5 frameworks, either for your product or for a product that you know and love. I generally get people working in teams because this is hard. And so you can create more creative energy. And frankly, it's a good time to get to know other people. In an online workshop, you start in a main Zoom room, and then we through the magic of Zoom rooms, we drop people into the small rooms together. I provide pre-formatted Google Slides. So I try to make it fast and easy to apply your thinking to these tools, models, and frameworks. By the end of the workshop, you have a presentation that kind of looks like the one that I shared today for Netflix. That one took me like 17 minutes, okay? Because I was using the pre-formatted Google Slides. Of course, I understand Netflix well. But my goal is to let you practice product leadership in the course of 5 hours. There's a 30-minute break in the middle. You will create a prototypical product strategy, starting really what I did in the second chapter. It's great fun. If you choose to, most people I encourage not to work on their product because they tend to overthink their own product. They move faster if it's a product they know and love, like Airbnb or Slack or Zoom, whatever they choose. But the idea, I'm a teacher. So I give you the tools, models, and frameworks, and then I want you to apply them. And then my expectation is that when you return to work the next day, you'll begin to do the hard work of applying it to your stuff. And these are some of the tactics that I've learned to make the idea stick. And the other thing that I know as a teacher is when you sign up for a 5-hour workshop, you make a 5-hour commitment, okay? So I have a course on Teachable, which is self-paced. But the thing with self-pacing is it's like people don't really fully commit to it, right? Like you buy a book, you intend to read it, you may read it, you may not, okay? So the advantage of pulling together with a bunch of people in a workshop is you've committed those 5 hours to doing it. And it's fast and it's fun, it's learned. I use a lot of tactics I use today to make it fun and highly interactive and engaging, despite the fact that we're in different corners of the world. Okay, keep going, Mike. Uh-oh, I'm here. Mike is on mute. I hope, let's see. Can I tell if Mike's the only missing one? Hey, can you guys, oh, you're there, Mike?
Am I back? Yeah.
You're back, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll assume Mike, I can answer more questions because I got Slido. So, how do you build up skills and product strategy step by step? Just read the essay. I really think you'll find it pretty straightforward. Hi, you're back, right, Mike?
I am back. Can you see and hear me?
I can see and hear you, yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
I was doing my best to mask you. Everything's fine.
Thanks, Gib.
Oh, they want to know where to find the essay, Mike.
You can find that at gibsonbiddle.com. I'm going to link to it right here again.
Yeah, ping the link, man. This is great. Hi, Duncan. I think I've seen you this week a few times. This is the first time I've opened up the chat, so it's all good. Okay, other questions, Mike?
Big company versus small company. Are there other considerations to make?
Sure. There's another way of thinking about it. A couple, and this is in my career hacking. I wrote an article on this, and there's a workshop on it. But there are people with different skills and frankly different passions. So there are starters who love being early and starting stuff from scratch. And then there are builders who look for startups with a proof of concept and help them scale. And then I call them super scalers, people who really enjoy a larger environment with more resources where they can work to dent the universe. So I think it's helpful to understand if you are a starter, a builder, or a super scaler. And you can read about this. Just so you know, I'm a builder. I've actually been a co-founder, but I realized that where I'm most effective is looking for startups with a proof of concept that are ready to scale and scaling them up. When I joined Netflix, it was actually pretty big from my perspective. Like there were more than 100 engineers. That was pretty big at the time for me. I just loved that. And then frankly, I'm not a super scaler. So, you know, Netflix is in the super scaling now. My skills are more general. So the reason I'm a poor fit for Netflix today, you know, I took statistics in business school, thank goodness. That helped me in the environment of consumer science. But, you know, Netflix, like by 2010, they needed somebody with a PhD in statistics to handle the AI and machine learning, et cetera. Other considerations? Oh, what stage are you in your career? So at the beginning, you're building something, and then you're building something great, a hit, and then you're building an organization, and then you find yourself building a company, and then if you're lucky, you're building an industry. I mean, at Netflix, we got to build a new industry called streaming. Sometimes it's helpful to think about where you are in that juncture. Generally, you know, startups are learning through School of Life and Hard Knocks. There are some companies that actually do a great job of helping you to learn. Electronic Arts was the company for me. I learned how to build stuff. And then frankly, it's always good to find a fast-growing company because fast-growing companies create opportunity. And that's really what you seek if you want to grow up as a leader. Like I got battlefront promotions like all the time because we were growing really quickly. I mean, I went from a producer at Electronic Arts to a senior VP at Mattel like in 3 years. That was a series of battlefront promotions. There was just so much growth. Like, okay, maybe Gib can do it. Okay, that's just what happened. So look for the rocket ships that you are passionate about, you love, you really think that what they're doing is important and it's going to dent the universe.
Awesome. Well, Gib, I think we should probably maybe just one last question to sort of cap things off here. Sure. If there's one big takeaway, just like somebody's going to be remembering one thing from this, what would you want that to be? And maybe we could let.
Yeah, Mike, I want everybody to look critically, within their environment and asked, do I really have a clearly articulated product strategy? And my guess is no. So I try to give you a standard to answer that question. And then I would like you to just think about the one model we dug in a little bit deeper today, which is, if my job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways, what are my theories and hypotheses to do that? So Mike, I knew you froze up for a little. I really ask people to be self-critical of themselves and their organization. Do we really have a clear and well-articulated product strategy? And then the second is to chew on that one model that we went through today, which is, how can I do a better job of delighting customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways? Those are the two things that I'd love to have stick with you today.
Well, I love that. Well, Gib, thank you so much. Again, for everybody, we did record the session, so I'll share it with everybody later, but go to gibsonbiddle.com. That you'll see the presentation there. You'll see, notes there. A lot of good, also Gib's essays are there. And I'll be following up with all of you with a link to the video as well. So Gib, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great fun. Stay healthy, stay well. And Mike and I, at the end of the day, are just doing our best to try to be helpful in bringing the product leadership community together. And so Mike, thanks a ton for enabling that. It's been great fun. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And thank you, everybody. All right. We'll see you later. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Peace.